John, today's show is going to be a big deal. You've come across some information that I think people are going to find stunning. Now, is YouTube cooperating is the question. It looks like it is. How are you, John?
I am well, thank you. Thank you. That's, again, quite the graphic.
Yeah.
If there's a Pulitzer Prize for thumbnails, I think you should definitely win that. I think for sure you win the Pulitzer.
We like to present you in the best possible light. You know, before we begin, John, I also want to remind people that in addition to watching our sponsor exclusive segment, which is going to begin at 6:30 p.m., people can see that on Subscribestar and Patreon for both Crowdsource, The Truth, and I Am John Cullen. People can always tune into the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. We've got our simulcast of the YouTube show working right on there. John's got a lot of videos that he puts out throughout the week, so search for the John E. Hoover channel on YouTube. I saw you put out, I haven't had a chance, unfortunately, to watch this yet, but what have we got here? You mentioned in your YouTube video yesterday, and we're going to be going into some greater detail today. Why don't you give us an overview of what we're going to discuss, John?
Certainly. I think I prepared a deck, a PDF file or something that we can step through. That basically is asking, hypothetically speaking, is this the biggest story that's not yet been told? And sort of the rhetorical question is, how the hell did we just do this? Right? I mean, the scoop that you're about to see tonight, that our patrons are going to see at Subscribestar and Patreon, is mind-blowing. I mean, if you take, again, I have said that if you go to the next page, I think that this coronavirus story is the biggest story possibly in history, right, in modern history. And what if there was a bigger story? And what if no one reported on it? What would that look like? And how would you know it was happening, right, if no one reported it? Hypothetically speaking, like if Krakatoa erupted and nobody reported it, nobody filmed it, nobody reported it, how would you know Krakatoa erupted if nobody reported it?
Sort of like a tree falling in a forest.
Exactly. So what we have uncovered here is what I believe to be the single biggest story that's never been told. And it's happening right in front of our eyes. You and I have been on top of it, as have the other investigators that are part of the Crowdsource The Truth family of journalists. And together, it's remarkable. And, what's really cool is that sort of like the New England Patriots, I look at you as sort of like the Bill Belichick, but with a personality, right?
Am I deflating footballs? Is that the idea?
No. But basically, you've put together a group of guys, women, men, what have you. I use guys, I'm from New York. But the idea is that each of us does our thing. We do what we do, and that's how it works. And it's very organic that way. And that allows me to do what I do, and it allows the other folks to do what they do. And by pulling this together, what you're going to see tonight is stunning. And this is it. I mean, this is the cherry at the top of the sundae. This is the biggest story in the world right now, and it's not being reported. So that's what we're going to see tonight. So I have a part 1 teaser that I published a video for a day or two ago. And that's called part 1, biggest story not yet told, or something like that. And the part 2 version of it is already up on Patreon and has been up on Patreon now for a day or two. And so our patrons
to be clear, John, that's going to be on your Patreon, Subscribestar and Patreon / I Am John Cullen. There's a lot of exclusive content that each of the co-hosts on Crowdsource the Truth have on their Patreon page. So it's always a good idea for people who sponsor Crowdsource the Truth to also sponsor their favorite co-hosts.
Indeed. And your supporters have been incredibly generous. So I don't even know what to say. So thank you. But yeah, what we've been doing on the show over the course of the last 4 months now, since I think we started March 15th, is we've been looking at the outbreak in different countries, right? I think what you have up now potentially is like Uruguay, right? Is that right? Is it Paraguay or Uruguay? I can't quite make it up. Looks like
Paraguay.
Paraguay?
Yeah.
Paraguay. Mm. And so I've been looking at South America quite a bit and what's been happening in South America, because Brazil, the outbreak is bad now. Mexico, it's bad now. 3 months ago, I kept saying, what the heck? Nobody cares about Mexico. And now we have an outbreak in Mexico and Brazil. But when we look at these other countries like Chile and Peru and Paraguay and Uruguay, Argentina, we see very different things, very different patterns. And it makes you wonder, well, what are these differences? Why are there differences? What are these countries doing differently? And they neighbor each other, right? The Andes can't be the explanation for everything, right? So I've been looking at that. Let's flip through the deck a little bit, just bang, 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 and I'll show everybody sort of a couple of examples. So when you look at Paraguay and we look at coronavirus, I look at coronavirus and I look at influenza. And what we see in Paraguay is last year, this week. So the way the calendars work when you track these diseases is they begin week 1 is the first week of October for some strange reason. So the thing in the middle that says week 1 is the first week of October. And yes, exactly, for the season. In their calendar for the WHO, this is calendar. So that's January 2020. But when you go all the way to the left, you see how it's week 27 or something in 2019. Go all the way to the left. This is the part that's important. And the reason is we're in that week now. Yeah, go all the way to the left edge there. Ooh, you don't have to zoom that much. Just scroll to the left.
Now what I got to do is I got to turn off this enable scrolling. There we go. So week 28.
Yeah. Well, right now we're in week 26 is the end of June. So the first week of July is week 27, and now we're in week 28. All right, so we're in week 28 right now. And when you look at these countries, they were experiencing an H1N1 outbreak last year at this time, but we've seen no reporting out of these countries since the end of March. Now, this is the World Health Organization's website that we're on right now. This is what we're looking at. Right, so this is the WHO. This is why the president has said, I'm not funding it. And this is my challenge to Joe Biden, who said, I will re-engage with the WHO. My question to him is, why would you do that? Yeah, why would you do that?
He wants to hire all the liars, all the losers, all the people who got it wrong.
Yeah, well, this is a mess. So again, you look at what was happening this week last year, and you said, well, why did they stop reporting? There's no reports over the course of since week 13. That's an entire quarter. That's terrible. So let's go to the next slide if you can. And what's that? What do we have here?
That looks like Burma.
Okay. So Burma is amazing, right? So Burma has a pretty big population. I'll tell you real quick what the population of Burma is. I think it's like 50 something million. But there's 6 people dead, okay, in Burma. And it's a big country.
Yeah.
Right. And not a lot of cases, right? Not a lot of cases. I'm looking up the population of Burma as we're speaking. Here we go. Myanmar, 54 million people.
Wow.
So there's 54 million people in Burma, and there's 6 people dead. I've been to Burma. I went to Burma in a canoe. Right. I went to Burma in a long tail boat, driven by a guy named was it Rambo? I think his name was Rambo. And I went to Burma, and it was amazing. But from a healthcare perspective, you can't tell me they've got this figured out. So is it that the World Health Organization doesn't care about Burma? Burma has some magical secret that to fix this thing, or everybody who's there just doesn't get it, right? They're just impervious to it. I don't know. So go to the next page and let's see what we get on the next page. Well, that's Burma last year. So this week last year on the left side of the screen is what Myanmar was going through an H1N1 outbreak. Ooh, that's interesting.
It's
So
huge.
remember so we talked about on the last show.
Thousands or what?
What it should say on the y-axis. What does it say?
It says number of specimens.
Oh, yeah. I can't make it out from what I can see here because I can only see up to week 34.
But I mean, compared to, if this is like 1, they had 90 something.
You can zoom out. You can zoom out just a little bit more. There you go. Number of specimens: 20, 40, 60, 80.
But so is it times 100, times 1,000, or it's just 80?
No, that's 80 per week. But keep in mind, in Myanmar, how many people do you think are going to the hospital to get tested for influenza in the first place? And look at how many H1N1 cases there were. Those are all H1N1. So that's a mess. That's not good at all. And then to Burma. And nobody goes to the hospital in Burma, right? And the WHO was tracking it, but not alerting anybody. Now, you can go live when we go into our patron-only hour. We can go live into the system. You have the link, and I want to show you Australia because it was outrageous on Australia, and you'll see South Africa in a minute. So yeah, let's just keep scrolling. The next one you see is Norway, and Norway only has 252 people that have died in Norway. Right. So again, that's a remarkably low number. 252 people have died in Norway. Right? Is it the salmon? I mean, what the hell is the answer? What did they do something magical that only 252 people have died? What is it? So let's go to the next page.
I've been to Norway. They're not doing anything magical over there, I can tell you.
All right. Well, this is Norway this season. So this season, they were in the midst of an H1 outbreak, an influenza outbreak. And then it looks like somebody got a phone call in week 11. Because by week 12 and 13, that was over. That story was over. Week 11 looks natural. Week 12 and 13 and 14 do not. And they were in the midst of something. And then it ended. That's quite remarkable. And nothing since. Right? We're in week 27 now. 28, actually. So absolutely no reporting since. So let's go to the next page if we can. And this is all set up. Yeah, this is all set up for what you guys are going to see in the patron-only hour when we go to Subscribe Star and Patreon. So this is the Netherlands. They have 6,155 people dead. Okay. Go to the next page. Let's see what the World Health Organization is tracking. Wow, that's their influenza outbreak. And again, it looks somewhat natural up until week 11. Seems like week 11 was the week the phone calls were made.
Everybody got the memo, right?
That was the week of the memo, was week 11. Because week 11, we're at a natural peak. And then in weeks 12, 13, 14, in every country, it's over. Have it again, and let's shut this thing down.
Could be a coincidence.
Could be. Could be. Yeah, could be. And meanwhile, no reporting since, right? There's nothing happening in the Netherlands ever since. Okay, let's keep going. Keep going.
New Zealand. I've been there too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So 22 people dead in New Zealand. Remarkable. Amazing, right? All the wealthy people. I'm sure the freaking lamb chops are awesome. I can't wait.
You know what? The ones from Colorado I prefer, but the produce can't be beat.
Well, President Trump will back that. Good old American farming. All right, let's go to the next page because New Zealand, not only do they only have 22 dead from coronavirus, they haven't had a single case of influenza specimen come back positive since about this time last year. Isn't that amazing? No wonder all the wealthy people want to move to New Zealand. Isn't that incredible?
I think it's the
Isn't that
lush
remarkable?
grass and the fields of green and the blue skies.
I don't know. Maybe they disinfected it before or after they filmed the
Lord
Hobbit
of the
stuff
Rings.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, at the end of the day, you look at this chart and you say, what is this? What is this? No, they're not doing their homework. I mean,
Somebody
nobody
phoned
cares.
it in.
I mean, they're not even picking up the phone. They're not even
No.
picking up the phone.
Yeah.
This is absurd. All
They
right.
texted it
So
in.
again, so why does the president say I'm not funding these clowns anymore? This is why. All right. Here is South Africa. Now, South Africa has a boatload of cases right now, but only 3,860 dead, but a lot of cases. Okay, now we go down to the next page, and what's interesting again about South Africa, they're in the southern hemisphere.
A lot
And
of
so what we
farm
see is that,
killings in South Africa.
well, what's interesting here is that we've got two outbreaks of H1. So we have one this recently, January, February, March, and then we have one about this time last year. But again, what I keep wanting to point out is when you look at week 27 and 28 on the left-hand side, you got there somehow. You didn't just show up in week 27 with that many samples. It's a curve, which means weeks 23, 24, 25, something had to be going on before that week 27 on the left, all the way on the left-hand side, right? So if you look at this year in weeks 23, 24, 25, there's just nothing, zero. How do we explain that? How does Dr. Tedros explain that?
I
So
don't think
I'm
he
calling him
explains
out.
anything. Yeah,
Well,
he doesn't
I'm
explain
calling him
things.
out.
He just hangs out in Geneva making speeches, and
Yeah, but
it's hard
here's the
to.
thing. It's criminal. There's
Yeah.
people who are
Oh, no doubt.
dying, and this is his responsibility, right? So that's why we have the Hague. The Hague exists to prosecute people who we believe could be guilty, potentially. We'll find out when the trial's over. But people that we think could be guilty of crimes against humanity. Hypothetically speaking, if Dr. Tedros and his team at the WHO are not reporting this H1N1 outbreak that appears to have been going on for the past year,
Yeah.
what the hell is going on here? What is happening? Why is this not being reported? Let's
Well,
keep going
John,
in the
you
deck.
told us a while ago that they stopped reporting influenza numbers, right?
Correct. But what I stumbled upon this past week was sort of like another repository. So you know that I've been using as a resource the CDC's website, right? I go to the CDC's website that we've shown the audience where I go to get the data.
And I
what I've
think
been
we should
telling
reiterate for the audience that that does not equal you agreeing with their information. It's you testing their information, because this is what they're presenting us. This is what they're acting on. You're putting it through the gauntlet, so to speak.
Correct. There's a lot of people in the comments section who say you trust the data. What are you, an idiot? Things like
They
that.
don't get it.
Yeah. So the idea is you have to be able to stand up to the data, and that's what we're doing here, right? So we're looking at the data and we're saying, is it true? Is this real? No one else is doing that. So you can't just out of hand say this is all nonsense, this is all lies, because there's no evidence of that. That's just like saying, I'm not playing. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home, right?
You're
So what you
testing the
need to,
data. You're testing it.
of course, that's what I do. And again, this is my tool, this is my map, and they're screwing with it, right? And I see right through it instantly, right? So we look at Vietnam. What color was Vietnam? Vietnam's been red the whole damn time. There's no one dead in Vietnam. If no one is dead in Vietnam, why is it red? What do you got to do to earn a green star on this map of theirs? Nothing. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So with 100 million people, there's no one dead in Vietnam. Well, tonight when we go to the patron-only hour, what you're going to see is this new repository of information. And this blows the cover off the ball. This changes everything. right? So this is Vietnam, and Vietnam has been undergoing an H1N1 outbreak this time last year. And again, they had to get there somehow, right? They didn't just start in week 27, right? It had to, right, or 28. So they had to get there by week 23, 24, 25. Something had to be going on beforehand. And yet this year we see no reporting from the WHO on influenza coming out of Vietnam.
Just a quick FYI, Nimrod
Yes,
is
sir.
telling us that The Hague is run by Luciferian elites. That might not be incorrect.
That's possible. Yeah, yeah. So, again, let Fauci deal with that, with the Luciferians, right? I'm sure
Yeah,
they've got.
I think he might be. He may be among them. He might be the prince or something.
Again, as long as they've got cameras rolling, I'd love to see them throw them in the cauldron or whatever the hell these guys do. So, right? I don't know about Luciferians. Forgive
Now
me.
you sound
All right.
like
So,
Dersh. I
I
hope there's videos.
yeah, I have no idea. All right. So this is South Korea. So South Korea, 288 people dead. Right.
Right.
I mean, what that's like South Dakota
Well,
in the
Jared and
United States.
Elizabeth Beck are in South Korea right now, and I've been communicating with Jared almost daily. He says
Right.
life is very pleasant there. They're going out to dinner, they're going to karaoke places and bars and having a nice time. Everything's open.
All right. What does the World Health Organization say? Let's go to the next page. Ooh,
Hmm.
ooh, ooh. That's not good.
Jason of the
That's not
Great
good.
Awakening suggests that COVID could be the cure for influenza. He's onto something.
Could be. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I like the way he spins things. I think he might get a job in somebody's campaign.
Now,
But
John, we're
it
very
looks like,
close to the end of this intro segment, and we're about to make the transition over to subscribestar.com and patreon.com/I am John Cullen and Crowdsource the Truth. People who are interested in this information and also interested in helping you and I sustain a business that allows us to seek out this information, continue this research, produce a show that can be broadcast to everyone. People who aren't socialists who want to destroy the market-driven capitalist system that the United States is built on, those people will sponsor the show and join us on Subscribestar and Patreon in just a few minutes when we continue there. Why don't we just close out? I see there's quite a few more slides, but we're going to have to continue on the other segment.
yeah, I think the audience gets the gist of it. I mean, the essence is that the World Health Organization just isn't doing the job. Right. And as we look across the world, you can just keep scrolling through the deck if you want, and I'll just wrap it up. As we look across the world, Russia, we look at each and every one of these countries, what we see is that there has been an influenza outbreak, and that in some countries, the number of people who have died is, in Singapore, 26 people have died, and yet they've had an H1N1 outbreak, and then boom, it got cut off. And then there's nothing left in Singapore. Right? We've talked about how there's only 58 people dead of coronavirus in Thailand. And again, did Thailand get the memo? Does Thailand know what they're supposed to be doing in
Or
order to
just
play
Chinese
along?
diaspora in the world. We heard from Italy that the reason there was such a hot spot early on was that Chinese immigrants control the leather industry there, and they all went home for the Chinese New Year and brought it back. No explanation offered as to why that didn't occur in Thailand.
And again, we see an H1N1 influenza just kind of ongoing in Thailand, and no real mention of it, although it's only about 20, 25 cases per week. But they don't seem to have a handle on it. And then you get to the UK and you see numbers in the thousands. So when we get to the United Kingdom, we see thousands of cases of influenza H1 in each week, 1,000 cases a week, right? And there was no mention of that, right? And then here's United States of America, and you see how week 11 is that magical week. Week 11
Yeah.
seems to be the week that all of a sudden somebody made a phone call and said, shut it down.
Right.
Right. Week 11 was natural and on the curve. And then weeks 12, 13, 14, it's in every country. It's the same. Shut it down.
Yeah. I mean, it's just far too coincidental to be a coincidence. But, John, we're just about out of time here, and we're going to make our transition over to the sponsor exclusive segment. There's still a ton of details to share, so we look forward to seeing everybody over there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in just 5 minutes. Bless.